Welcome to Algebra 1. This is Section 1 of Chapter 1, Variables and Expressions. Our goal is to write and interpret algebraic expressions. A mathematical quantity is anything that can be measured or counted. The first type of mathematical quantity is a constant. A constant is something that remains steady or the same. For example, an adult's height, or the number of states in the United States of America. When a quantity is not fixed or can change, it varies. Now, if it varies, we call it a variable. A couple examples of variables are the temperature in Michigan every day changes, and that's a variable. The amount of change we have in our pocket might be a variable. Expression. Now, expression differs from an equation because an expression does not have an equal sign. There are two types of expressions. One that contains only numbers, which is called a numerical expression. Now, if the expression contains variables, it is the second kind, which is an algebraic expression. It is useful to know which words signify which operations. So we're going to write down some useful word phrases here. Now go ahead and copy these down, but pay attention as you copy this down so that you realize which one applies. Now, if you make a nice clean copy, be sure to, after I'm done grading this, cut this out and add it to your notes in your agenda. As you can see, I've taken a moment and underlined in red a couple of key words. And we're going to talk about these words in the next slide when we bring up parentheses. So again, it might be a good idea just to underline those. Since I did, that's a good hint that it's time for you to take those notes on that. And we'll go to the next slide. So let's now talk parentheses. We used parentheses to group, to organize our unit in what we do first. And you know that you've seen please, excuse, my dear Aunt Sally numerous times, and that's called the order of operations, and that's what parentheses help us with. So in the case here we're looking at this, we have the product of 4 and, so we're going to multiply 4 times something, the sum of x and 2. So we're going to take x and 2, the sum means add, I'm going to add this, x and 2, and we're going to multiply this by 4. Product means multiply. So multiply 4 and the sum, so now we have to group this. So this sum of x and 2 was grouped, and we had to use parentheses. Now in the second one, we have the quotient of the sum of y and 6. Remember, sum means add, quotient means divide. This gets a little confusing here. But we have the quotient of the sum of y and 6. We got to take y and 6 first. And then we're going to the quotient of this and 7. So here's where we divide by the 7. So read through that, because these can be a bit confusing. Double check yourself. Look the slide over, make sure you understand. If not, mark any questions down so we can talk about them tomorrow. Now I told you that we have an expression when there is not an equal sign. Well, when there is an equal sign, it is called an equation. And when there's a greater than or less than sign, it is called an inequality. So let's start writing some word phrases for equations and inequality. Now this comes with a warning. And the warning here is yours might be different than mine. There are multiple ways of writing these down. So we're just going to talk about one or two of them. So looking at the first one, I could have x plus 3 equals 5. I could have the sum of x and 3 equals 5. Or I can have 3 added to x equals 5. For the next one, I could have 7 is greater than the product of 3 and y. I could have 7 is greater than 3 times y. And for the last one, I could have the quotient of 5 and y is less than or equal to 11. Or I could have 5 divided by y is less than or equal to 11. Here are some useful word phrases for equations and inequalities. Now, this list isn't all-encompassing, and the ones I'd really like to bring your attention to is the parenthesis one, where you see the quantity of, or twice the sum of. You're really going to use that or see that a lot when you have two of your keywords together, plus and difference, or plus and sum, times and difference, times and sum. That's when you'll use your parentheses. But also when you see the words like quantity or the quantity of, or sum, the sum of, you'll see that word. So take a moment and write these down Again, if you'd make a good list, it's a good idea to cut this out and put this in your agenda as notes, as hints for future use. Okay, now it's your turn to see how you did on this. So take a moment, do your best on these 4 problems, and come to class tomorrow with questions.